Hello, CHistrue here, and this is a sad video because it's made in remembrance of a friend of mine who has passed. This individual was younger than I am. He was a philosopher until the end. He had a very logical mind, and he was a friend of this channel for many, many years. My friendship with this individual has enhanced me. It has helped define the direction that I took. I can always bounce ideas off of him. And as a true philosopher, he would take any idea I had, no matter how insane, no matter how crazy, and simply approach it as a logical problem, with great compassion, with great tact. I never did convince him of that continuum hypothesis argument, which was probably a good thing, but we definitely did discuss a lot of the other ideas on this channel, and his passing is a time of great sadness. The world has lost a philosopher. At the end of this, I will take a moment of silence, for those who wish to join, whether that be of religious or secular bent. It's a moment of silence, and it will be done so at the end, in honor of the passing of a great logician, a budding logician. And so I do this video in his honor. Part of the reason I do so in his honor is that I didn't actually want to do this video, because as I bounced the ideas off of him, it was very apparent that they weren't as well thought out as I had hoped, and he being who he is, or who he was, found the holes in them and very, very quickly, but he encouraged me to refine the thoughts. And I never was really able to refine the thoughts, to be honest with you, but his last wish of me was to do this video. And so do this video I shall. In your honor, old friend, I begin. The question of time travel is one that, by its very nature, requires us to go beyond computational physics alone. That is my thesis. I intend to support it. What I mean is that whether we are allowed to go back in time or not, we must still go beyond the simple computational mathematics and computational physics in a meaningful way. Now, when I raised this point to my friend, he stated that there are other principles that also are principles of logic that physics would rely upon, and I agreed with them. But in this particular case, it's in a very meaningful sense that we have to go beyond the simple computational sense. It's not simply logical tautologies. It's not simply the principle of cause and effect. Sure, yeah, I mean that's a principle of metaphysical. Maybe the wrong choice of terms, but in the non-spiritualistic sense, you could say of metaphysical truth, that we would have to, that doesn't rely on computational physics. But I would say in the question of time travel, it's a little different, and that is that it's very meaningful, and I'll explain to you why. There are those who say that we cannot travel back in time because it would violate the second law of thermodynamics, or the conservation of energy. And I would say that in those particular cases, that's not a meaningful argument, that the conservation of energy is not really violated, because as you open up your wormhole or travel through your time machine, you've joined the two systems, the present and, let's say, the past. No one argues about the future. Relativity allows us to jump into the future using time dilation, but we're talking about the past here. I would say that that's not a meaningful argument. It doesn't violate the laws of physics. It doesn't violate even the conservation of energy. I would also say that the second law of thermodynamics argument would not be a good argument, because if you travel back in time, you are still traveling forward in your own arrow of time. So your own arrow of time, you would say either that's a closed system in your time machine, which might violate the previous argument, but either that's true, in which case you're still generating entropy, or it's one big, huge, humongous open system, in which case You continue to generate entropy, meaning our time in the past. You continue to generate entropy, and you still uphold the second law of thermodynamics. So, what is the argument against time travel? And that's the causality argument. The idea that if you change the past somehow, you've changed the present. But then, who are you in the present to change the past? It becomes circular. And that may very well be that particular issue, in other words, I go back in the past and I do something, maybe I generate more entropy than there would have been in the universe or something then, and then that creates a paradox. That in and of itself hasn't violated the particulars of Boltzmann's equation or the second law of thermodynamics, but it has violated simple causality. And that might very well forbid time travel into the past. But the problem is, that's a metaphysical principle. That is cause and effect, but in a very meaningful way, in a way that says time travel is impossible. It's not simply a tautology. It's not simply a logic game. This is something that has actual meaning in physics. But let's say that time travel is possible. Wormhole, stable wormhole, rotating around a cosmic string, something like that is possible. Well, then we have the question of the grandfather paradox. And you would ask the question, well, there's one or two possible scenarios. One is that you simply follow the script. You follow how things work. There was a good-looking guy back in the 17th century who was a pirate. A little balding, a little thick, but a good-looking guy. And he had a strange predilection for mathematical logic that astounded the great men of the day. Okay, so that means CHistrue travel back in time, right? I hear the sound of crickets, but anyways, all right. So the point being, though, is that you open up an old dusty history book and you find out that there was such a person. That I never violated any kind of, I never deviated or changed the past. So the problem is, according to certain mathematical principles, you could never say that that's certain, quantum uncertainty. But even without that, how would it be that every single motion I would ever make back in the 17th century would then be predetermined? That would be a principle interjected in there to uphold causality that would itself go beyond the mathematical laws of physics. Give me a mathematical law of physics that would require that. You say conservation of energy, but don't we have one great big open system now? Don't we have, conservation of energy might be a good one. I think that's the one my friend brought up. But don't we have one great big open system now? But even conservation of energy, if you think about it, it doesn't necessarily, that in of itself might well go beyond known computational principles. That's a minefield there. Again, this is a speculative video. I didn't refine my thoughts. I'm doing this as in remembrance of a friend. Conservation of energy might very well apply there, but I think it's a weak argument. Then we have the issue of multiple universes. I mean the old multiple universes theory, the one that had to do with probabilities in quantum physics becoming their own parallel timelines. And there I would say that could be consistent with computational physics. In other words, I go back in time and I change time and create a new timeline. That may be consistent with laws of physics, but it introduces the idea that probabilities become actualities. And that's now a statement on the nature of reality that, while consistent with the laws of physics, goes beyond them. In other words, you've gone beyond computational logic on the whole question of time travel in all three scenarios. You're forbidding it, going back in time, and then reinforcing the past as it was, or changing your reality to a new timeline. In all three cases, you've gone beyond, in my opinion, the mere computation involved with physics. So that's my scenario there. Feel free to comment. I'm going to take a moment of silence in honor of my friend. He's been a good friend of this channel, and I thank him, and I thank all of you who've been good friends of this channel. CHistrue signing